Meanwhile, the next event on our menu this afternoon is the men's 1,500 meters. And while we have many hopes for this event in Jim Spivey and Joe Falcon and Steve Scott, we first must tell you the story of this man, number 302, Chuck Aragon. Sometimes he says Chuck Aragon. Either way you say it, it's a story which really makes you root for what he does here this afternoon.
When Chuck Aragon runs through the Red Cliff deserts of New Mexico, it isn't just to train for a shot at the Olympics. It's to relieve the pressure of his post-athletic profession.
Hi, Mr. Hudson. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
My name's Dr. Aragon.
Because Chuck Aragon, Olympic hopeful, is also Dr. Charles Leon Aragon, M.D.
I know when I first came home and proclaimed that I wanted to be a doctor, I detected a bit of disappointment in my parents' tone, and I guess that's quite surprising. But I think what they thought was a doctor's life is one that's maybe not his own. After I got into medical school and continued with my education, I think they saw that I had a great love for what I was doing, and now they realized that this is probably the vocation that I was best suited for. I don't see any broken bones.
If medicine is his vocation, New Mexico is his location. After graduating from Notre Dame, Chuck returned home for med school. When talking about New Mexico, he could be from the Chamber of Commerce.
New Mexico is much more than just a state. It's a frame of mind. You know, you can drive through New Mexico and gather strength from its beauty. You have the beautiful streams, the beautiful, majestic mountains. I'll be going away to Kalamazoo, Michigan to do my residency, but I hope to return to New Mexico and practice here because I feel that this is where I'll be happiest and most fulfilled.
First, there's a score to settle. In the 1984 Olympic trials, Chuck was overtaken in the last yards by Sidney Marie, finishing fourth only 3/100ths of a second from a place on the Olympic team. That finish is the reason that Chuck Aragon, at age 29, with a medical degree, still runs.
On that day, in 1984, that was all that Chuck Aragon had to give, and I feel very, very proud that I was able to get that kind of effort out of myself. As I sit here now, I feel that that disappointment has changed into more of a motivating factor. To me, to make the Olympic team is something very, very precious and something that, you know, obviously I want for me, but I also want to share with my family and friends and people here in New Mexico that have known and supported me. As far as I'm concerned, this year there's one race, and that is the Olympic trials. And if I prove myself worthy on that day, then there's one more, and that's the Olympic Games.
The final poke in the eye for Chuck Aragon came in July when Sidney Marie strained a hamstring. He was slow in letting anyone know that he was hurt, however, and by the time Sidney Marie pulled out of the Olympics, the entry deadline had passed 2 days earlier. Chuck Aragon will finally have his second chance in a moment on ABC. The men's 1,500-meter final is next. The world record is held by Moroccan Saeed Ouida, 329.46. The American record is held by Sidney Marie, a record that was set in 1985. Sidney has decided to take some pressure off his body and move up to the 5,000-meter here in the trials. Jim Spivey will be running in lane 4, the 28-year-old from Glen Ellen, Illinois, the top American in the 1,500 meters since the 84 Olympic Games. He won this event in the last trials in 84. Next is Joe Falcon. He might want to take an early lead. He did in the semifinals. He has a Razorback tattooed on his arm from his days that he is still enjoying at Arkansas. He's a junior there. And Steve Scott, one of the greatest distance runners in American history. He holds the American record in the mile and ranks second all-time in the 1,500 meters behind Sidney Marie. The rest of the field, Tim Hacker is in lane 1, then Chuck Aragon, Richard Oldfield is in 3, then Spivey, Ross Donoghue, Maurice Smith in 6, Richie Martinez, then Joe Falcon, Terrance Herrington, Mark Deady in lane 10, Steve Scott, Jeff Atkinson, who was a factor in the semifinals and could be a factor here in the final, Timothy Simpson in lane 13. The top 3 will represent the United States in the 1,500-meter event in Seoul.
On your mark.
Now, what happened in the semifinals was that Falcon quickly jumped out to the lead. Scott nestled in the middle of the pack, and Spivey let himself fall all the way to the rear. And you can see little Joe Falcon in the red shorts thinking again of moving to the front of the pack.
I don't like what I'm seeing here. Tim Simpson is taking the lead at a very fast pace. I think he got into the final by virtue of the fact that he tripped or was tripped in the semifinals. He was passed on into the finals. He really has no chance to make the team. He's going out and setting a fast pace. Just a coincidence, he went to Indiana, which is where Jim Spivey went, and Jim Spivey would like to see a fast pace. I think he's working to help Jim Spivey have a better chance off of a fast pace. Spivey has missed a month or so of training. His kick is maybe not as good as he would hope. He ran a fast time, which we covered in Oslo. Both he and Steve Scott ran 3:50. So Steve Scott and Jim Spivey would both like to see the pace be very fast. It's not working, though. Everyone realizes, as I do, he has no chance to make the team, and they're letting him go. The pace extremely slow. The pace for Simpson was 56, but we would have to guess that the rest of the pack is somewhere over 61 seconds.
Timothy Simpson leading the men's 1,500-meter final. You can look for Steve Scott, who's wearing sunglasses there near the front of the pack. After that, it's Maurice Smith, number 345. And there is Chuck Aragon on the inside there, number 302. Scott with the sunglasses on, and Spivey is back in there.
Joe Falcon, who went and led through the previous races, has dropped to the back. He'll probably try and make a big move on the third lap and get up near the front of the pack. Right now, this is the type of race where someone could go down. There's going to be a lot of pushing and elbowing for position in about another 300 or 400 yards.
Well, Marty, judging from what you've said, we're awaiting the collapse of Timothy Simpson, as the field now runs almost 4 abreast coming out of that turn, and there's some jostling going on for position.
2:03 by the half mile for the field, and as you say, I'm shaking because we're not going to pick the best runners off of this type of a pace. And now Simpson's going to cause some problems in the national championships. We saw some fellows go down when this happened. He really was passed in on an appeal.
And that's Jeff Atkinson making a move on the outside, taking advantage of the collapsing Timothy Simpson. That is number 518, Jeff Atkinson. And Spivey now making a move.
Now we're seeing Terrance Herrington, a great runner from Clemson, good at 800 meters, is going to jump and try and steal it. A lot of pushing in the pack. Steve Scott on the outside in good position. Jim Spivey in good position in 7th place right now, but Joe Falcon is not even in the picture. That's a big surprise.
Terrance Herrington, number 666, right now leading. Scott behind him. Chuck Aragon is going to have to make a move if he wants to finish in the top 3. Spivey coming up behind Scott.
An Indiana teammate of Tim Simpson now, Mark Deady, is making the chance. He's going after his former teammate, Spivey. It's the 2 men from Indiana fighting for the 3rd spot.
It is Atkinson with Scott, and Spivey will let it slide by.
Oh, I think Simpson and Deady may have gotten together on that strategy, and it paid off.
He can't believe it.
Who ran so well in Oslo, 3:50, but who had missed some training earlier in the month, had been a question mark. In other years, a slow pace like that would have suited him. And this year it didn't work. Jeff Atkinson, who we could see just on the edge, gradually getting better the last 2 years, will get the spot. There's the big upset. Atkinson, Steve Scott, fortunate to make it in that crazy race.
Mark Deady was the 3rd place finisher from our vantage point here across the line. Jim Spivey is in shock. He cannot believe it. And Chuck Aragon will not make the Olympic team.
53 seconds for the last quarter here. As you see, Atkinson made the bold move with 500 yards to go. Make sure he was in front when the fire drill started. Steve Scott in perfect position. And now Mark Deady with the man he must have trained with hundreds of times, Jim Spivey, just in front of him. Really the idol of any runner who grew up in the Midwest. Spivey, the best American for 4 years. And it's going to come down to the tape. And I had a similar situation when I made my Olympic team, and I know that neither of them feel entirely good about this.
For all the miles he has run, for all the yards he has practiced, Jim Spivey misses the Olympic team by 4 feet. There is Steve Scott, the man who finished second. He is now 32 years old and still running after all these years. And Jeff Atkinson is 25, a graduate of Stanford. He wins it in 3:40.95. Not close to the record, American record, and Mark Deady in third place. Aragon, we believe, is in sixth.
And we send a very inexperienced team to the Olympics.
A very experienced team that will be going, a very inexperienced team going up against some very talented runners, among them Saïd Ouida of Morocco. A challenge awaits this team for sure in Seoul.